we have the most charismatic education innovator. He is a rule breaker extraordinaire, Tim Vieira. What did you think of Tim Vieira, Julian?
What a global citizen, South African with Portuguese roots, building schools for the brave generation. Yeah, buckle up. Tim is a rock star, even within the bracket of luminaries. And he made me chuckle. And I've had to think back to this conversation quite a few times since we had it. So, get ready, hit the play button, take a notepad out because you will want to take short notes.
You will. Tim is brave. He's honest, and come dive in with us.
Another thing about Tim is that he's refreshingly honest. So he might say a thing or two where you're like, wait, what? I don't think I agree with that. And that's part of his medicine, is that he is so refreshingly honest that it encourages and empowers all of us to play life at another level of maybe higher fidelity, volume up on the honesty. And so one of my favorite parts about this episode.
And he really sees young people. He manages to cut right through all of the noise and see them and hear them, which is so rare in today's world.
We are breaking the rules of business as usual. Join this exclusive Alter Brain Trust series with Hope and Julian.
I'm going to get right to it. I know what a rule breaker you are, a game changer. And I wonder if you could respond to, you're disrupting the education system in Europe, in Africa, in North America. As you just shared before we hopped on recording, you are responding to the mess that education has become. And I would say that you're fueling this disruption being a rule breaker.
Yeah.
How would you describe yourself as a rule breaker in education or beyond?
Okay, so excellent. Really glad to be on this Alter Brain Trust. It sounds amazing, and it's great to just get down to it and start speaking about everything. But rule breakers. I think some of our rules are outdated. I look at some of our laws, and we've got laws from 1950 that are governing our schools at the moment. And because of rules and legislation, we can't do things that we know need to be done. We've got so many teachers wanting to do things and they can't do it. We've got schools who want to change, but they can't because of a rule. And, if that was working and at least the kids were okay with it, well, we'd be okay with it, but it's not. We've got our learners that are super unhappy. We've got parents that are unhappy, and we've got society needs something totally different. And we've got these rules that are there that existed before we had the internet, before we had all these new jobs that are coming on board. And they were there for a reason, and, we can look at them. But I do think we need to get rid of a lot of rules and open up education a lot, really a lot. I think we need to bring rules that will allow people to use their talents and to start finding out how can they make education more flexible, how more personalized and more relevant for today's world. And many times, the rules are what stops it, because the common sense is there, the will is there, the talent is there, but then we come to a point where, legislation doesn't let you do this, or we've got these rules that make no sense that are still there hanging around. So I think, in many, many countries, we look at these rules, and sometimes maybe it's to actually, it feels like bureaucracy, and when they were put there, maybe they were there for a reason, but they're no longer applicable. They really aren't. When we look at all the changes that have happened and everything else, it's time to break a lot of these rules. And many people always say, well, you've got to think out the box then, you've got to do this. But I think at this point in time, we've got to throw away the box. There's no more thinking out the box,
Well,
no box.
You say that, throw away the box, but you also say be brave.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to get to the kernel of what we want to hear is, how are you brave to break the rules? Where did this start? Have you been breaking the rules all life?
Breaking the rules, it's easy when you do it for the right reasons. Okay, so if you ask yourself, if I break this rule, will it be better for my learner, for my student, for the one I love? Yes, it will. Okay, well, let's do it. You understand? So when it comes back to us and we look at a rule and we say, look, if we're going to break it, it's going to be good for our learner. No, we don't break it because it's good for BGA or if it's good for me. If it's the best thing for our learner, we're still going through like, a court case. We've got the Portuguese government in a process against them to allow our school, which does a curriculum that they've got equivalence to be accredited once our student writes the same exam as every other school. And, all we want is them to get the same equivalence to go to university. They don't want to do it because our model's different, because our model is hybrid and uses technology mixed with the best of online and the best of offline isn't something they believe is a model that meets the current government legislation. Okay. But then I look at it and I don't feel so bad breaking it, because if I go a step back, our constitution says that you as a parent can choose the best educational model for your child. So let's go there. So that's the best educational model. And if that model is BGA, because your kid can do a flexible, personalized, less anxiety producing system, and they thrive at it, well, then that's the first thing. And our first court case that we went to court, we won it because of that, exactly. Because it didn't limit any child, it actually allowed them to flourish. Okay. And after that, we even had the judge put his grandkid into BGA. So if you look at that, by breaking a rule that we know was the wrong rule for the moment, for the time, because it will change. And then we'll all wonder, why did it ever exist? Because we can see it, all right, that it's going to fall away. It's just bureaucracy, okay? It was the best thing we could do for learners. It was really the best thing, Other rules are, sometimes you've got suppliers, educational suppliers, curriculum suppliers who believe that if you choose theirs, you can't choose another. You have to work with one, And if you look at it, it's like saying a pizza's got to be a margarita. You're not allowed to put a pepperoni. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that. Yeah. But someone likes pepperoni and someone likes pineapple. I don't like pineapple, but someone likes pineapple. Great.
Tim, still going in for the brave nugget. I'm trying to find out, when did you start? And I bet Julian's eager to find this out. There's going to be a lot of young people listening thinking, okay, he's talking about, breaking the rules of education and building out this education model, but who is Tim to be so brave? When did this start? When you were a little boy, or yeah?
Yeah, look, I've also broken the rules when I shouldn't have. I had my first car crash at 14. I wouldn't say that was a good rule break, but I did believe that what's age? Why, if you can drive at 14 and you actually drive safely and everything, what's the difference of driving at 14 or getting your learners at 17 and your drivers at 18? If you can do 14, because I was driving for about a year and there was no accident until one very rainy morning. But until then, the reason I broke the rule was because my dad needed me to break the rule, because we were immigrants and my dad needed me to go buy stock for a store, and I'd go because he had no one else. So, it was like we're breaking the rule, don't get caught, but, that kind of break the rule. But I really do believe that sometimes we're stuck with ages, and, because you're not 18, you can't drive, but maybe you could at 16, maybe you that, developed, etc. And I think we need to start setting settings that not so much what you can't do, but can you do it? And if you can, okay, you understand, a little bit more like that. But I always thought rules were there to be really strong suggestions. And if they're good, I want to take those suggestions. But if they're not that good, I don't need to really work with those suggestions. At school, I had an issue with rules as well, because it was like crazy that some of the rules we had, like putting up your hand to go to the loo. I really, if I need the loo, does the whole class have to know what I'm going to go do? You know what I'm saying? It was little things like that. But you push those limits, and sometimes because you push the limits, they say you're noisy and you naughty and etc. And you in my day used to get caned, and I remember in standard 9 before my final year, because I actually became a prefect, believe it or not, but before my final year I had 67 canings, And was it always because I broke the rule, or was it just because I was trying to push the limits and make the school a better place? But so sometimes maybe we're visionaries, and you get caned along the way. But
That's a quote. That is a quote right there. Maybe we're visionaries.
And I look at it,
right.
sometimes.
And then it's a fine line, Tim. I mean, one of my mentors, one of our mutual friends, Hope, he says, "Play with the rules, don't play by the rules." Right?
Yeah.
And I love that you're addressing the fine line, because very often when people hear something, it's black or white in their mind, and really the reality is it's not black or white. Some rules are absolutely there for a positive reason, and other rules are archaic. They're old. They're perpetuating realities that we don't want to have perpetuated. So we need to break them. We need to play with them. I'm new to BGA, so I'd love for you to take that term, and kind of let us understand what the Brave Generation Academy really is. I hope you said it in the intro, Tim. It's gone international. You started in Portugal and South Africa. Now it's all over. Just take us a little bit into the storyline of BGA. I think I know why you started it, because you're that visionary that knew as a child, I have to break those rules.
Now, look, the name itself, Brave Generation Academy, when we came up with it, I thought it was for the kids. I really thought it's for our learners. But in the end, I understood that it's actually for the parents. The parents are the ones that have got stuck into these ruts, and the law is this and the rules are these, and that's what I'm going to do. The learners are super brave, and they want to do new things, and they understand that things aren't working. So they convince, it's just the parents and so on that we need to start convincing. And I think with BGA, it really came about because I had memories of being at school, and I had really good memories because I enjoyed school. I can't say I didn't, but I do know that there were so many people around me that school, it worked for me, but it didn't work for a lot of them. And I knew what they were going through, and I knew the pressures they were going through. And then I started seeing it in my own daughter, where school wasn't for her, and as soon as I got BGA, she started to thrive because, like for my daughter, she wants to do a passion, which is ride horses, and then do school. And if she does that, she'll actually do school. But when you force it and you say it's school, and then when you have time, you do your horses, it doesn't work, because it puts this heavy pressure on her. And she's like, wondering why can't she do what she really loves and then fit school in? Like and that should be a life of a teenager. We put all this pressure on them. And then I saw it with surf. You're stuck in the classroom. You see the waves out there, but you're stuck in the classroom. And then they tell you can go surf at 4 PM when you leave, but there's no waves. So I started to just putting a few things together and just using common sense. And I think we're in a world where common sense is lacking. It's very uncommon, and I wanted to have this school that would be kept super simple, very simplistic. You have 2 learning coaches that have got good values and ethics, and they will be there to let you think, let you say things, and let you find a passion or a purpose that will keep you happy. Every time we get into well-beings and all these big words, what I've really realized is if kids are doing what they like, they're super happy, And then we start to muck it up by telling them, hey, okay, but you should do better at academics, and you should better do this, more of this, more of this. But, many times when we're telling them this, we didn't do it ourselves. We're not even leading by example. And then the other big thing about it is that, we don't even allow them sometimes just to be bored. And I have a big problem with this. Like sometimes even our learning coaches, our kids have got some time. We're thinking of having them to go listen to someone or put a podcast on. And I said, no, sometimes just let them be bored. I remember being bored, and that's when some of my best ideas ever came. It's like I'd start, doing things with my mind, and I'd come up with a game, or I'd start thinking if I ever won the lottery, what do I do with the lottery money? And it would get bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'd be able to change the world, all that kind of stuff. But nowadays, if a kid's got time, the parent wants him to learn Mandarin, then he wants him to do piano, then they want him to do this, and we sort of ticking all these boxes, and my kid does this, but he's not being a kid, So I started to look at it, and I said, okay, if you can do what you like, you can do summer school, and we'll give you time, and that's why we have what we call relax zones. Get into the relax zone and relax and talk to each other. They also love just having a coffee with their friends. They also love to just sit around and talk and say, what have they watched? What have they seen? They love it, but we don't allow it because, we don't give them that time. And that's how Brave Generation really started coming about. It became this really just 30 kids, different ages, because ages is also, we've set this thing about ages at different places, but it's so amazing when an older kid starts to give a bit of leadership to a younger kid. All of a sudden they grow, the older kid grows, and there's more empathy between them. And the younger kid does things that they would never do. I had a dad who said, I can't go play golf with my child, but he goes and plays golf with some of the older kids, and he comes back with a scorecard that's all filled in, etc. And when I go, he's like mucking around, putting the ball in funny places, doesn't fill in the scorecard, nothing works, Or other parents that have told me that my kids never wanted to learn music. And now with an older kid that's playing a guitar and teaches them a song, they learn the song, and then they start to learn the second song and the third song, etc. So there's so many good ways of us breaking these rules, but you couldn't do that before because, a class is set. These are the ages, etc. We're starting to see more and more of these schools coming about where they're breaking those rules of how do we set up a traditional classroom? What is it all about? So, and we're seeing a lot of benefits coming from it. And I'm super excited because it's happening a lot in the smaller kids, the little kids, those 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. It's easy to do it and they're doing it and it's working. But then they get to that high school period and there it's just back to the industrial age. It's von Bismarck, back.
Tim, I wonder if you could just share the setup of BGX. I think that's one of the most, for me, having visited some of your hubs in Portugal, I describe them as a mixture of co-working and teenage hangout, self-directed learning. And I just wanted you to sort of point the finger at how you are also putting these hubs in incubators or places of a lot of entrepreneurial vision and how that's impacting the kids.
Exactly. So, when we look at what a traditional school is or what a school is, we've got to actually sometimes go build them, and we keep building them and we build them, and then you build, and then you actually look after buildings and you look after the grass and you look after the tennis courts and you look after the swimming pool, and you actually don't look after the learners, which was the thing you built it all for. But then you're looking at the price you have to charge parents, and it's huge because you've got all these other costs around it. So what we decided to do was, okay, we'll set up a hub for that's about 150 square meters, 2,000 square foot. And in that hub, we'll have a focus room where they can go and sit in and just focus when they need to focus, and have one-on-one meetings with the course managers when they need to know a little bit more about some content. And then we'll have the relax zone where you hang out, and you've got this little kitchenette, fridge, and microwave. Very simple over there because we actually think you should go and eat in your community. So we hope that you go have coffee at the coffee shop, that you'll go have a meal at where we organize discounts for you and all that. And you take a friend and you invite someone who's new, etc. So you start to get into the habit of doing that. And then you've got this co-working, which is really a co-educational area. So it's got, IKEA furniture, nice seatings. It's got, we've learned along the way, we've got these shelves with flowers that are there so that they break the hub up. So it's not just one open space because, our learners sometimes fall in love with each other. They start dating. And then they also fall out of love with each other. And then we have to have a place where one can sit on one side and one can sit on the other side so that they've got, their own space and things like that. So we've been learning, but the big thing we've learned about this is that we don't have to tell you where to sit. When you arrive and there's space, you'll sit wherever you feel like you should be sitting. And we see it. And in the beginning, it was really tough because we wanted to set it up in a certain way. Then learners would arrive and start to change it. And then they would first think that's where they sit all the time. Then they would see new kids arrive and they don't know, and they arrive earlier and they sit in their place. So they're not going to say that's where I sit. So they just sit somewhere else. So you start seeing this whole evolution of, just living. And that's what's really wonderful about it. And then you've got, a hub that we can ask the community to come in. So we get a lot of speakers that come in, and then we go out a lot. So our tennis is with the local tennis clubs. Our swimming is at the local swimming club. Our golf is at a golf club. So we don't have anything, but we've got everything because it's all been built around us. And I think, again, in a world that we're always talking about sustainability and that, we talk a lot, but we do little. And this really brings it in. where we now have hubs in places like Tabua, in Vilanculos, in Tofu, in Windhoek, in areas like Espinal, in areas that couldn't hold a school. They can do this because you can get 20, 30 kids that have got different ages and are looking for something at school, that are looking for a school. And it's also made parents being able to move away from city centers and go into areas that are, more, let's say, in the mountains and more remote, because now they got a school, because that was their biggest problem, is where do we put our kids? So all of a sudden you've got these communities. So all we've done is actually copied the old missionaries and maybe even Socrates, where we bring in some of the local people that give you apprenticeships. So we work a lot with apprenticeships, what we call shadowing. And then we work every 3 months in our build week, which is really with community, where we just go into community and do what's in the community. And we see that makes kids happy. They feel part of a community. They feel like they're learning something. They start building up their CV. So if they're doing some time at a vet, it starts going on their CV, and they start to open up LinkedIn pages where they start filling in things that they're doing, etc. And that alone starts changing mindsets, and that's been the big thing, is where I sometimes walk into a hub and I say, like, where would they be if they didn't have BGA? Because they're so special. You look at them and they're different. They got these different needs, etc. And if they were in a traditional school, they would just not be happy. Like I look at it, it would be difficult.
Oh, Julian, sorry, you look like you were leaning into.
I'm definitely leaning in. Tim, I love your passion. I love the way this is just bubbling out of you very clearly, because it's your embodied journey, right? You said something like royally important a little bit ago about boredom, being bored, right? And absolutely, if we're not bored, then we might have everything, but we're lacking the ability to be with nothing. Another question that I have for you in this context is, you have this passion, you have this drive, you have this vision. It's become real. You're probably more than halfway into creating it at this point. Was there a point though in your journey where you didn't quite believe it, where you didn't quite trust yourself, where you maybe lacked the confidence, where you maybe were like, man, I don't know if this is going to work out? And was there such a point, and how did you deal with it? I'd love to know that from you.
Look, I did. I questioned myself various times. I just didn't tell anyone. And because I didn't tell anyone, I didn't want anyone to
yeah.
stress. If anyone was going to stress, it was me. And when I started with my two boys, I left my daughter in a traditional school in case I messed up with my boys. At least my daughter would be fine. They never want to risk the girl. But, about 2.5 months in, my wife came to me and she said, Tim, I think this is really working. I think we need to put our daughter in here. And I was like, now that's good, because, it was 2.5 months in. We weren't even doing everything that we do today. It was a total different BGA to today. I feel sorry for the first people that started in BGA, because it really was, they were guinea pigs. We were really learning, and we were taking too much into account what people were telling us, and everyone was an expert. But there were so many experts who never execute anything, and they were telling us what to do, and then we'd try what they did, and I'd say, but why did we just do that? Because someone told us. So I said, can we stop? So I actually stopped seeing parents for about 6 months. I wouldn't see parents, because every time I met parents, one would say we should have uniforms. The other one said we should have holidays. And we took away holidays. We don't have holidays. We open all year, and you go on holidays when you want. We open at 8, we close at 6, and you come to school and do your 5 hours at any time you want. But then, we'd get parents who would tell me there should be holidays. It's not fair that some kids go on holidays and others are still working. And, it makes no sense. But why would that be a problem for you? Because you can one day be you don't go on holiday, and they're going on holiday. And what does it matter what they're doing? Just do, it's your own timeline. You're no longer stuck to everyone else. We're not going to be competing and saying where you sitting in the maths class and etc. So it took a lot of time to understand this and to try and convince parents that the model actually works this way. Now I don't have that problem. Now people come to me and they say, Tim, you're the expert. You do it. And I was not an expert. Again, it was really common sense and just pushing it out and listening to the learner and seeing that the learners were fine. It's the parents that had all issues and were complicating the whole thing and et cetera, et cetera. And our platform has improved a lot. And now, even with AI coming on board, it's exciting. It's really exciting. And I used to say we have a flexible, personalized way, but we didn't. We had a British international thing. We were just doing it differently. That took away a lot of anxiety, because you could do your exam 3 times a year, but it was still that British international curriculum. You did your IGCSEs and your A levels. Now you can do your US core, or you can do our up program where you can start your university at 16 without exams. So it's all projects and assessments and evidence driven. And then you just go to university for 3 to 12 months, up to you to get that experience, and you got your degree. So it's great, because a kid can have his degree at 19. Some of them are doing it just for their parents, because they don't even want the degree. They don't see the use.
Exactly. Doing it for their parents, or doing it because they feel they should. And I sense you have your finger on the pulse here, and you're unafraid of calling it out, which
But
I appreciate.
I did have sleepless nights, I must admit, because it was a big responsibility. I used to have 3 kids, and all of a sudden now we have over 1,000. I see them all as my kids. They super, like, I stress for them. I don't let anyone speak bad about them. You know what I'm saying? It's like I really am super. I trust, I believe in these kids, because I see how we've taken kids that maybe had left 3-4 schools, or been not left, have been asked to leave. And then they come to us, and in 2-3 months, they're different, totally different. And, then I see how they're doing. And we've just used some kind of a key that has unblocked something in them. And they're starting to do well, And I remember we had one kid that had left 3-4 schools. They'd been asked to leave. And he came to us, and I was told by everybody, listen, we shouldn't take him. This isn't a kid we should take. We're very young. It's not good for us. It's going to be negative, and we're going to have to then answer all parents, and it's going to be shared on social media that he didn't do well, etc. And then I said, but listen, our name is not Comfortable Generation Academy. It's Brave Generation Academy. So these are exactly the ones we need to take, And we took him. And I tell you, about a year later, he had been doing super well. And about a year later, I went into a place where they actually teach kids music that are orphans, or their parents are in prison, etc. And I was there, and then the lady said, "Oh, we got one of your students that's a volunteer here." And I said, "Oh, who?" And she told me that kid's name, and I was like, "Oh, is this going to be good or bad?" And then I said, "And how's he doing?" "Oh, the most wonderful kid, the most wonderful. He's such a role model." And I was like, and I was listening to this, and I sent him a message, which I've still got, and he said, "How do you know that I'm volunteering there?" And I said, "No, I'm speaking to my connection." And I took a picture of the teacher that was there, the lady that was there. And he comes, "Tim, I just want to thank you so much, because you believed in me when nobody else did. And now I'm doing the same to others. I'm believing in others when nobody else believes in them." And I was like blown away. If that was the only kid that ever came through Brave Generation Academy, we've done our job. It's been brilliant. And that's the thing, it is a world where we keep telling kids, you can be different, you are different. But then if you don't fit into that box, you sort of punish them, and we're getting that in the whole world. If we look at the countries, if you're a citizen that maybe doesn't do much but lives by all the little rules, you're a good citizen, and you'll be given money every month, But if you're someone who uses your talent, and you're demanding more from your government, and you need responses, and you want to do better, you're not such a good one. You know what I'm saying? Let's sideline you. And that's the thing that we can't lose. And that's the thing our educational models should be pushing and promoting, and everyone involved in education, and not just education, the parents and our companies and everyone, all stakeholders, because that's what's important. Is if we don't get these people in the future, we are going to become a sad little society. We're going to lose everything we've fought for. And you know what? And we find more people that become victims, and they start blaming everyone else for everything, and they become these victims, because it's almost nicer and easier to be a victim. At Brave, we tell our kids, you're accountable for yourselves. We will give you everything. We will try everything. Our learning coaches are there to help you. Our learning coaches are amazing. They going to do everything they can for you. They, even your friends, we normally tell teachers, don't be friends with I always tell my learning coaches, be friends with them, because you care about them. You want the best for them. So be their friends. So you've got these friends that are helping you, but if you don't do it, it's your fault. And we can't answer your parents. We can't tell your parents, because if you don't do your thing, you don't come to some live lessons that you have to come to, you don't keep to your timeline, there's nothing we can do. And, it's amazing, because in the beginning, kids were arriving and they thought, hey, at BJ, we can do what we want. Now kids have understood. At BJ, we do our work and then we can do what we want. You know what I'm saying?
You're making such a great point there. I think it's the same with the parents that needed the holidays, let's say, for example. People are so used to being told what to do. And when they're not told what to do, it becomes tricky, because you need to rise to sovereignty and know what you actually want, right? I have a question for actually both of you, all three of us. I'm going to go first. And it comes back to something you were saying, Tim, is, it's something that our parents want for us, or something the parents of that child wanted for that child. So I have the question for both of you. When did you do something that your parents wanted for you, and then you realized, oh, fuck, that was wrong. This is not working for me. And I'll give you my example. I went abroad really early for a full year of exchange when I was 15 to South America, Paraguay, where you definitely drive when you're 14 on a Sunday, no big deal. Just don't get in a car crash. And I came back from that exchange year, and I kind of knew my world changed forever. Long story, I could go on for that for quite a bit. But a few years later, I just finished university, because I kind of had that intuition that finishing school and university would still at some point, maybe be in my favor, and everyone else around me believed that would be a good thing to do. And then I joined BMW Cars for an event management position I think I did this for 2 years. And don't get me wrong, I had a great time in many ways of looking at it. But I just knew this isn't my dream. This is the German dream. This is my parents' dream. This is what my parents feel at ease when they have guests over for dinner and they're like, so what's your son Julian doing these days? That was their dream. It's like, oh, he works with BMW, right? And so everyone was like, check, 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 boxes check. But deep down, I knew, like, fuck this. This is never going to go anywhere for me where I actually want to be. And, a few things happened, and I finally had the courage. I was brave, and I was already on another continent, because the event management gig brought me all the way to Vancouver, and I was like, I quit. I'm done. I'm going to stay here too. I'm not even going to fly back. And so I have that question for the two of you, and maybe Hope, you go first, because I love hearing your point of view and your voice. When did you do something that your parents wanted for you and you just knew it was wrong and you changed it? You were brave, in the same way that Tim has explained.
Well, I actually have been so fortunate, and maybe because both of you know me, I'm a bit of a rule breaker, or doing things differently human being. And I would say that my father really broke the mold in front of me. When I was a teenager, he left the corporate world crumbling quite a bit in his 40s, but he really revealed that it was crushing him in plain view for us. It wasn't scary. It was more enlightening for my brother and I to see that this does not hold the promise that many people feel it does. So I watched him move from being a corporate man to being a very creative human being. And so for me, at a very young age, I started to, whenever I found myself in a situation or setting where I felt like I was being squeezed or pushed into a box, I tried to wriggle out or find my way. Even deciding to go, despite what my parents wanted, to boarding school when I was 8. Sometimes people are like, you want to go to boarding school? You wanted to go? And I was like, you bet. Go live, on a perpetual sleepover and dive into this world. I was 6 when I said I wanted to do it, but it's basically like I wanted to start traveling as soon as I could. And I was very lucky because my father had broken that mold. My mom was supportive. That I have to say, I can't answer that question in quite the same way.
Well, you did in your own way.
I've been flexing it for a long time.
Yeah, I myself, I'm a little bit like Hope there, because our family came as immigrants into South Africa, so I learned the language quite early and all that. So I became very important in the family early on. So they needed me to, go to the doctor and translate the disease for my grandmother, and I would decide what she had, because I'd listen and then add everything in Portuguese. And I tell you that I think I was lucky that they always gave me a lot of love and a lot of time. It was a family that didn't have a lot of money, but it had a lot of love and a lot of time. And I used to see a lot of my rich friends get very little of those two things, and it wasn't a good thing. Okay, so I was super lucky with that. But I do have a story that I do have parents that really put pressure, and I remember about 3.5 years ago, we were sitting at a table, and there was a mom that really one of those pushy moms, and you could see it from the beginning. And she sat right next to me, and I was like, ooh. And there was a lunch going on, and she was busy talking, and the whole time, and then she was busy saying that her project is to get her son to be at Oxford. That's her project, and she kept calling it her project. And then, I wouldn't engage in that conversation. And I had a whole bunch of friends around as well on the table. And then she went, Tim, what is your project? What's your project for your kids? And then I looked at her and I said, look, my project is that my kids don't go to prison. And it was like they were taking them to Oxford. And I just said, no, they're not going to prison. I just want them to be good people. You know what I'm saying? And that was the expectations. And I think sometimes we put these amazing expectations, exactly what you were saying, Julian, because you want to tell other parents, this is where my kid's going. This is what are they doing? This is how successful I am because they are, But then you look at them and they're suffering and they're not even that happy, or because they're trying to live up to you. And then if they don't, they feel even worse. So you contributing to the thing you want them most is happy. And then you contributing to their sadness. It's really a sad situation. And it's tough because even I myself, my kid has had now opportunities to go into, let's say, great universities. And I want to say, yes, go for it, do it. But then at the same time, I look at it and I'm saying, what would really be good for you is to do up and go help us opening Bangalore, because we've got Bangalore going, and then go through to Thailand and help me there. And you're going to learn a lot more than going to any of those big names,
Yeah.
So I'm now like having to decide and choose, and it's not easy because you do still. So society really does rate you by all these things. You know what I'm saying? But then when you get to 40, 45, you don't care about all those things. And then you've got to change your whole life again because you decide, now I've learned everything. It's not that important, that piece of paper, that thing you hang on the back, and, all those kind of things. So, yeah, it is tricky, Julian. But I think there's 80, like what myself and Hope have, I think is rare. It really is rare, because it doesn't happen a lot. Everyone wants their kids to be more successful in papers and in all these qualifications, and maybe just be happier than I was, and that would be the way to say it, like, can my kid be happier than me? That would be easier. Yeah.
I do love you riding the line between being brave and bold, but also extremely exuberant in your energy. It's infectious. Like I can see Julian's face. Like when you get going, Tim, and I've seen you in a room full of people, whether you're speaking in public or you're galvanizing your team, you are going to, it sounds like, be shifting not just from building this education empire, but into politics, from the sounds of it. How are you going to bring this brave, honest, rip-roaring, bold energy and exuberance and positivity into the political space?
Yeah, it's probably one of the reasons I'm going in is because I see our politicians just as broke as our schools. If you look at politics today, it's a sad place to be. It's like no one with talent wants to go there because you actually can get ruined, and it can actually be a bad thing for you. And as soon as you go there, you're a person of risk, basically. If you go into politics, your bank account has got to be put on a special alert in case you receive a lot of money and all this kind of stuff. And that's really sad, because if we were getting the right people in there, that would be the furthest thing, but we're not. We've got like a lot of professional politicians that will say and do anything to stay in power. And, we're losing out because of that. At the same time, I really do believe that we're in this situation where we're not like, how am I going to say this? We're not motivating our people to become better. Like, we're really telling them become mediocre and just don't bother us. And that's it. And then we will look after if you just behave. I feel that. And I think myself going into politics is because I was getting so depressed that I was either going to do something about it, or I was not going to have any more lunches or dinners, because every time I had a lunch or dinner, it would be talking about the same things over and over with my friends and with everyone that was there. And then about 8 months ago, I was getting into the plane in Cape Town, and I actually told my wife, I don't think I'm going to go. I think I'm going to stay in Cape Town. And, and she says, but what do you mean? She said, I said, I don't want to get to Portugal, and then I've got to deal with all the, the negativity and everything that's going on there, because, I don't know, Portugal's been going through some difficult politics, just like the whole world has. And then she said, oh, but South Africa is not perfect either. So I said, of course it's not, but you know what? There's less state. It's like I can do stuff and I can bend the rules and get things done, and there's no bureaucracy, instead of getting into a place that's so structured that it's just bureaucracy, and all I do is use my energy in bureaucracy. So I told her, I don't think I'm going to stay another 2 weeks. And then my wife said, no, just get on the plane. You'll be fine. Once you land, you'll be fine. So I got on the plane and I wrote like my manifesto, let's say, for being running for president. And it really excited me. And I thought, this is exactly like when I started BGA. I started having a cause. I started to grow with it. I started to get people on board. And that's exactly what's happened. It's only the elections in 2026. But at the moment, I'm actually the forerunner. So it's going really well, and I'm the forerunner because I'm the only one who's been brave enough to put my name down. No one's put their name down. So they're all saying they're running, but they're not. So, it's just been growing momentum. We've got our campaign that will be launched from Jan onwards. And it's really, again, it's a campaign about changing mentalities and really just making people believe again, and believe that things can be better and different, and that our future is not scary. It's not, everything isn't doom and gloom, and you can use your talents, and you should use your talents, and you can make things happen. And I think that's the big pull, that we can work towards. And I hope that by me entering, it will again bring in like those brave parents that started to join us, which are over 2,000 now, that the others will start joining politics. Other people that look at this and say, well, if Tim can do it, anyone can do it, because really I had nothing to do with politics. Like, I had nothing to do with education, and I think we need more of that, and that's what's exciting me. And it's going well, and I get to use both skills almost for both things. And it's also been really good because it's motivated even my own team, because my team has also looked at it and said, we're not going to complain about things. We're going to make things happen, etc., etc. So I've even seen people in my own team, and it hurts a bit because I lose them sometimes, because I actually make them really believe, and they also want to go out and change the world, so they leave. But I feel like, we've done our job, and it's really painful, and they stay in touch. And I've got people coming to this dinner, for Christmas dinner for the BJ, that are no longer with us, but they're still with us, and now I've even given it a term. I've started calling them boomerangs, because I've had some that have gone and come back. So I call those the boomerangs that are coming back. So it's been a journey. But I think the politics side of it is, I wouldn't have gone into it if I was happy, but I wasn't happy, and I just didn't want to keep talking about it. You've got to act at some point.
You are an example of that, and I wish that we could see your manifesto. I wonder, actually, apart from politics and education, and I'll turn this to you as well, Julian, thinking about a manifesto for a better future, what are some of the tenets that you both would throw in the ring for building a better future for future generations? What would be on your manifesto? You could just pick one or two.
Well, I think Tim's probably got many. He might. I'll give him a chance to translate them from Portuguese into English in his mind. But for me, I think it's about seeding global change and seeing positive global change. Very much so. I think there's a lot of complications in the world. The layer of admin and bureaucracy that Tim talked about, I think, is a big part of that. The layer of like following rules that are like no one even knows why those rules are there. I grew up in Europe. I definitely see myself as a European in some ways, but the European Union is definitely a culprit of creating this like more and more rules and bureaucracy that is completely removed from the people in towns or in smaller cities. And so I think bringing this notion of positive global change from the people themselves that's part of my manifesto. That's part of my wish for the planet. That's part of my prayer for the planet, right? Is that idea that actually, I think it's a Margaret Mead quote, that if you don't believe a group of people can change the world, well, indeed, it's always only ever been a small group of people, right? And so we need to empower people to take change into their hand and not believe that I personally can do all that. And so that's part of my manifesto, would be empowering and believing in people to bring out the unique gifts, and with those unique gifts, creating a better world.
Yeah.
I think, especially when we go into education there, I'll add one more, and that is, I'm a big fan of technology. I'm a big fan of things that actually make our life easier and help us understand that we can all be creative human beings. And I also believe that we naturally interface with that when we are in nature, when we are in stillness, when we are in silence, when when you're surfing that wave, when you're out there in the water. And any high performer has a form of that, where they connect with the void, where they connect with meditation, where they connect with, again, this natural principle. And so that will be also a manifesto for a better world for me, is making sure people like are not run by digital notifications, but are actually, or like shock nervous systems, but are actually experiencing themselves through nature first, like a primary teacher. And then from that primary teacher into the human grid, into the human creation. I don't know if that was too high level, but I know Tim's going to take it away. So he has even more ideas.
No, no, no. So my manifesto, why I'm going for president, is in English. So then I'll share it with Hope, and you'll have it there. So I've got it in Portuguese and English, so it's ready. And I really think it's this thing about us becoming accountable for ourselves and being allowed to become accountable for ourselves, because it feels like sometimes we're not allowed to do anything. So definitely, I believe that. I also believe that we need to start having leaders that we can identify with. If you look at young people nowadays, how do they identify with the world out there? Like the leaders we have out there, it's really tough to identify with them. You can try your best, but if those are the best and those are the ones we have to identify with, it's very, very tough. So I think, and again, we're going to have to start running, and we're going to have to start putting those people there, etc. To be there. And I do think we need a world that's more human than ever. It's the one reason I love Portugal. Like, people are human here. You look at them in the eyes, they talk to you, they ask you how you are, and they wait for you to respond, and they listen to you. They don't immediately start moving on to another conversation. And that's amazing, and I don't want to lose that. And that's, I think, what I would love is that we do stay superhuman. We've got all this technology, etc., and it's there to help us, but it's not there to replace anything. And especially in education, we're going to have to become the best humans ever, because that's the only advantage you're going to have. All knowledge and everything, you'll have AI, you'll have everything at your fingertips. But, doing this and sitting here and answering questions and asking questions and doing this is super, super human. And this is something that, it would be a lot less fun if we're just typing all into an AI and getting these results. And that's what it is. Because I do believe you need to spend time with humans. You need to read human things. You need to write down your things, to just put everything in your brain and letting them come out, etc. And those are the things we're going to have to teach people, because that's, like you said, those few people that get that are going to make big, big differences. They're going to be that group that you're mentioning. So I think, yeah, that's it. But I am very positive. I really, when I look at learners, the more time I spend with young people, the more positive I am. They less focused on having things. They less focused on spending. They're less focused on a lot of things that we have been like greedy with, And I see it, because I always used to say you go through three things in life. You go through need, where you need stuff and you need to live. You need some food, accommodation, and we start to cover all those things, and even government covers some of those things for you in many countries. And then you go through greed, where you think you need everything. And, that normally becomes a big problem, where you buy, and you've got 3 TVs, then 4 TVs. You've got a house with 5 rooms, when you didn't need all that. You got a car that's a 5 liter instead of a 2 liter, all these kind of things. And that's greed. And some people never leave that. I see youngsters leaving that a lot quicker and getting to the stage which are called freed. And in my age group, I've got a lot of people that never can get to freed because they've got so much stuff in their greed. They've got to look after their big house, the cars, this and that. And then they got all these expectations for everybody else. So they can never get away from it. But youngsters are like in this freed and they want to stay freed. They want to actually not get into all these things. And then we sometimes even we blaming them. They don't get anything. They don't want anything. Well, maybe it's okay. They got to freed a bit earlier and they might get a little greedy, but that will also be good because it will make them, work and try and use their talents. But I think that's where we are. It's not a bad world. Definitely it's not. I don't think, and I also don't think every politician's bad or anything like that. I think we're just a little lost. We just need to get a bit of common sense again and listen, but it's got to come from people demanding all this again, so yeah, that's it.
Would you say we're lost in the digital?
Yeah, it's a tough one, because we've got this world, we think everyone's on digital, but we're not. We've got millions and billions and of people that aren't on the digital. And the truth is, when I go to Africa and they're not on digital in many aspects, they're super happy. They're smiling more. They don't know that the world's about to end. They're not even interested in that. They don't know that Bitcoin went down and they don't know all these things, but they are so happy, Yeah. So I think there's got to be balance in everything. And there's got to be equilibrium in everything. And I think, it is good to have your digital and something like this where you can use digital to also get out some positive viewpoints out there and et cetera, et cetera. But again, the balance needs that you do start finding good things and not just concentrate on the bad stuff. There's so much bad stuff. There's so many things that you can become a habit of getting so one-sided, far to the left or far to the right, because that's how it targets you. That the more you read about one thing, the more you're going to be targeted in that one thing, and the more you're going to become one-minded on one thing. And before it wasn't like that, because you'd buy a book, you don't know, you know, it's going to make you think, and you'd have time and etc. So that's the risk, But overall, I think technology can do amazing things for us. I think it can actually let us become bored again and come up with the next wave of amazing things to do. So that's exciting. But
I have a follow-up question there, Tim, because I know a fact about you that Hope told me is you don't read email. And
yeah.
I mean, you get help. Someone else reads your email, but tell us about that. It sounds like a productivity hack.
Love that. I love it.
Yeah. So since 2014, I got tired of emails because I'd be BCC'd and CCC'd, and then I bump into someone and they said, I sent you an email. And then I would also get people sending them at 2, 3 in the morning to show me how hard they worked and all that. And I felt like I was never getting on top of this. It just kept becoming like a mountain. So I decided it was a Sunday, and I just said, you know what, I'm never going to read these emails anymore. I'm done. No more emails. If anyone wants me, they can phone me and send me an SMS. There wasn't even, WhatsApp. So it was like, and then I just decided that was that. And after that, I started the WhatsApp. So I'm good on WhatsApp because people think, they don't just keep asking you stupid things on WhatsApp before they send. Because if I give my number, if I gave my email, I'd have been offered for a coffee, and then it was this, and it was like for no reason. We'd be getting a lot of communication. And on WhatsApp, they got to think before asking something, So it's been good for me on that. I've got an email for my like Uber and Instagram accounts and that, but I really got away from it. Like people ask me, I said, no, here's my WhatsApp. You can send me a WhatsApp. If you really do need something, I've got my assistant Miriam, which then receives it and sends it to me on WhatsApp. So she just puts it up and sends it through to me. But I decided I couldn't handle emails. It was taking a lot of my time. It took me time away from people. It really, really did, and I think it was a good thing. It was the best thing I ever done, and I can't go back to email. Like and then it's so long when emails come through, and I'm not great at going into all the detail, reading, and in WhatsApp it's a lot shorter, And even if they send me a very long WhatsApp, I'll just phone back and say, yeah, so what's this all about? What's going on here? I can't read this thing.
You've definitely inspired me, I have to say. You've definitely inspired me to consider my bandwidth, my capacity,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to email. Tim, you talk a lot about balance and common sense, and I'm curious for you how you got a very busy life. I mean, I know you are traveling all over the world. You're wrangling a bunch of businesses you haven't even mentioned on our session today. How do you stay grounded? How do you stay balanced as a human with all these
I
things
did,
going on
I
in life?
did let a lot of stuff go. So I made a list and I really looked hard and I thought, where do I add value and where don't I add value and where someone else could do what I do. So in my property business, I really stepped down. I might go to a meeting with a mayor or something like that, or an architectural meeting, but I don't do the day to day anymore. I stepped totally away from that. So I put in priorities, not everything is a priority. So I put in priorities. Then, priorities, family kept coming up, and I decided then, I'm going to incorporate them into my travel. So every time I travel, I take one of my kids with me, or my wife goes with me, or maybe all of us go together. And it's been amazing because I've got I'm not great with technology, so I've got an assistant. Every time I'm in the car, they're there reading my WhatsApps and answering for me, things like that, and it's just a lot more fun, being with one of them. And I look at it and I see how many people that I know that are less busy than me, that a lot less busy, and in the end they spend so little time with their family, with their kids, and that. So for me, I've really, and you know what's happened? I've become best friends with my kids. I've really become best friends. We were discussing yesterday at our hub in Boca Raton. We had a flight, and it was like an early flight. We were going to catch a 5 o'clock taxi to the airport. So we decided we're not getting a hotel, myself and my boy, which was 18 at that time, and we stayed at a live music bar just under the hub. And we were drinking bourbons and old fashions, and he was there with me. And in the end, we almost forgot our bags because we were a bit lost. But that's a story that I would have with my best friend. And I didn't have it with my best friend, I had it with my son, that has become my best friend. So and now, some people say, Tim, you don't want him to go to university because you don't want to lose your best friend. And I say, yeah, I'm selfish. But, it's really become that. So the balance, you first have to put priorities. You then have to really see, how can you do things differently? And if you can't do something differently because there's a limitation, because, my kid's at school, well, then maybe he's at the wrong school, because you should be educating your kid as well. So when my kids travel, they're learning so much. They're seeing things. They're coming back stronger than ever. They're in another mindset. And I think we've all got to look at that. And most people that are going to be listening to this are, let's say, in the blessed side of life, where they do have the possibilities of doing different kinds of things and incorporating their kids and family, etc. So yeah, I think that's how I get things done with my team as well. It's very much, I have my Monday morning meetings. I do my 6:15 walk where I phone my Angola team, because we still have a business there and I'm still, involved there. So I do my call there so they know when to expect me and how things are. And then, I've got my teams. Every time there's a promotion in the company, I still phone the person, congratulate them, tell them, I'm expecting big things from you. And they tell me, we're going to do big things. So it's great. I still interview every single learning coach. I'm the last interview that they get. Yes, it's a 15-minute interview, but, I've had two that after the interview, I said, you got to go back and chat to them because I'm not comfortable, So I'm still doing that last interview because that's how important it is, and the time's there. And I don't delay us hiring someone because I'm too busy. I'll make a plan to put in those 15 minutes quickly if need be, by cutting another meeting a little short. So it's all priorities, and when you've got them well set, and it starts becoming a habit that you stick to. And I also say no to a lot. I really do say no. People think I say yes to everything, but I say no a lot. I really do. Like anything now that isn't core and isn't mission critical, I actually say no. So that's also been, I think, something that I've learned, because I never. It was actually disappointing if I said no to someone, like for myself. But in the end, it's no good if you're doing something halfway for them and for you. You got to be truthful.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in there because I love this answer, and I think the ability and the empowered no is a really big part of the ever changing equilibrium of balance, and a big part of common sense for me personally. But Hope asked you also about common sense. You mentioned it a few times, Tim. I was actually just about to ask kind of the same question because I believe common sense, as a common understanding, but it seems to me in the last 20 years or so, we have kind of gotten lost from what it really means, what is common sense. So, in your own best words, what is common sense? And maybe you can give us an example or two where you feel like it has really guided you and has really connected you to be relevant with the people in your life.
Yeah, I think we've made a lot of noise. There's so much noise out there that we sort of don't just concentrate on the most important things. And I think we all know what's right, but do we do it, or we don't? Because there's all this other stuff around it. And I think it's tough because anytime you want to use common sense, it might be almost seen as either becoming too nationalist or something. You can get a brand, you can get a tag on it very easy. Okay. And it's not true. Sometimes common sense is just about good ethics and good values and doing the right thing. And, I look at it, and we've managed to keep our school very, very unified, let's say. There's all this inclusion stuff out there, and you can be very, very inclusive, and you get to this point that you're so inclusive that you're actually divisive. Yeah. At our hubs, we don't have flags for everything. So, at the moment, we're going through geopolitical issues. All right. Ukraine and Russia, Israel and Palestine. You know what? In our hub, it's I don't call them safe spaces, it's comfortable places. There's no safe places in this world. There's comfortable places. And there you're comfortable to believe in what you want, but you're not going to have to affect everybody else by bringing that and dividing and start to tag someone as Palestinian and someone as Israeli and someone as Ukrainian and someone as Russian. And because we've done that, some of our best friends are Russians and Ukrainians, are best friends in those hubs, like unbelievably close friends. Okay. Other things like vaccinated. Are you vaccinated, not vaccinated? I've always said, we love you either way. It's not our choice. It's your body. It's your call. You decide what you want. But we're not going to ask you the question, and we don't expect you to come and tell us what you are. It's really up to you. Things like, religion, again, it's your choice. It's we live in a world where we're going to have to live with each other. So in our hubs, again, the same thing. You need to pray, go pray. There's a focus room, no problem at all. We don't need to all pray with you. We don't need to all understand everything. Some stuff we'll understand as we grow. Okay. Same thing with LGTB plus and all the rest that goes with whatever you are, no problem. You're gay, you transvestite, you lesbian, you binary. Look, I don't even understand it all. So you know what? We're not going to put a flag up for everything, because the day I start putting up flags for all those things, and then I put up flags for people that love guns and people that hate guns, etc., we are broken. We are so ununified that it's, we've broken it all up into little tags, and you are that, and you are that. And, I remember when I was young and in my school, and I went to a rough school, but we had like some punks and some goths, and they were punks and goths. But, sometimes summer came and those goths were at the pool swimming with me, and they were no longer goths. Like they were just swimming and playing, and they left, And the tag wasn't that they were goths. They went through it, but then they were out of it, and then they were doing something else. And I think with social media and all that, we then even like we make it tough for kids, because if they've chosen to try do something, that they are tagged that forever, and they've got a history forever, and then they've got to live up to that flag, and they've got to do this, and they've got to do that, and it's not fair, because a lot of them are just, the best thing I think in life we can be is curious. So if you're curious and you try something, and after a while you're no longer that, you've moved on. You know what I'm saying? And yet we want
Share
them
that.
to
I
be.
share that curiosity, Tim. I think that was what sparked us. And also when I met you, Julian, that curiosity connection. Um, Listening to you, Tim, you are a champion at seeing and hearing people. Like, you are bringing it to the human level where, and I've seen it in person, but I see it online. And when you talk, your skills in seeing people, really seeing humans and really listening to them, whatever age they are, it speaks to worthiness. People, when they feel seen and heard, there is, in my opinion, there is a sense that they have been seen. Their worthiness has been seen. I wonder what that word brings up for you, worthiness, when you're in contact with people you're working with or kids in your BGA. Do you feel like worthiness is a powerful force that people are contending with at the moment?
Yeah, for sure. And look, and everyone's trying to find their worth, and that's why they share everything on social media to see if can you see my worth? Do you see why I'm here? Do you see how good I am? Can you put a like on it and say how good I am, etc., etc. But I really do believe we're in this place that we need to be authentic. We need to let people be authentic and celebrate that. And and some people aren't sure what they are yet. And we've got to give them that space and don't put pressure on them and just let them be and let them go, because you learn from life and you learn from experiences, and you can't know everything when you're at a certain age and make a call and then have to live with that for the rest of your life. It's just unfair. It's unfair. you know when we were small, we'd say, look, I want to be a fireman, then a pilot, and you could change all your jobs all the time. But then if you say I'm one thing, you can't change it anymore. It's just not fair. And I think that we keep telling kids, oh, you've all got talents, but then if they tag themselves with something, we almost take away that they could be talented in something else. And it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. And us as adults, sometimes we're the biggest champions at breaking them up and at keeping everything divided. Because once I explain this to learners, we don't have issues. Like, they just do their thing. The issues normally come, like parents will come and say, oh, we should be doing a march for this, or we should be doing that. And I say, look, not in our school, no, it's private. So as a private school, I've got the choice to say, no, not here. But in public, you can go do what you want and you can do things, and it's actually good. Go and do the stuff, but not here, because I want everyone to just be happy. Like they not be happy, but really just accept and and then they come up with, they've got so many other difficulties that they're overcoming. There's so many other demons that they got to get through. They don't need all these other invented ones that just break us up all the time. And I don't know where they come from a lot of times. I really don't, because if you really talk to learners, it's not their priority in life. Their priority now is survival through my teenage years, start my life once I'm out of this. This is like, I just want to get through this, because it's supposed to be fun, but it's not really that much fun, because everyone's looking at me and expecting me to do this and do that, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think being authentic, being able to find your talent and your passion or purpose or something, anything you can hold on to is amazing. Anything you can hold on to. And I think that's what's great about it. And I see it. As soon as a kid finds something they're good at and another kid says, wow, George over there is so good at that, they got to live up for that, and they get better at it, and they're in a good space. If you tag them with something negative, oh, it's terrible. You know what I'm saying? Like, all of a sudden they're now living up to that. That's not the greatest thing ever. And it's I think we used to spend a lot of time with our grandparents. I really do. And I was lucky that I had grandparents that were incredible. My kids had amazing grandparents, but there's a lack of grandparents at the moment. And we employ, I'd say that our average learning coach is probably 26, 27 years old. But now I've started to try and recruit 70-year-olds that come into our hubs and spend some time in the hubs, because those ones really are super common sense and do say things straight out. And what it is, and we need some of that. We need some of that, because everything is too sensitive. Everything is very, very scary out there. And no, we can't keep becoming these victims. We've got to be stronger than that, because where we got like family and community, and again, Africa, Southeast Asia, you go through those places and people are happy and they're strong and they don't tag themselves as with any victimhood, and they don't even have time to do that, in countries like in the West where, being a victim maybe gets you more social security or something like that. It's easy to become a victim, and everyone's got a story and everyone does have a story, but we've got to overcome it. And we've got to tell our learners and our young people, you can overcome it. You know what I'm saying? It's okay. We didn't even go through these Second World Wars. We didn't even have to fight for all our freedoms. We didn't have to do all the things that people have done, and yet we're losing them so fast because we still believe that we're a victim. If we can change this victimhood and start fighting and wanting to keep what we have, I think then we'll be better. We'll be better humans going into the future. So
You're
yeah,
touching
I
on
think,
some really, really important points there, Tim. I mean,
yeah,
like authenticity, intergenerational exchange and learning, right? Resilience, which this is a very big topic, right? It's like how to actually grow in resilience with life rather than trying to change life and make life, as you said, a safe place. Well, maybe there isn't a safe place. Maybe they're comfortable places, but really,
correct.
like life in itself is an uncertain event, and we as humans have this illusion that we can create it into something that it isn't. And so being part of real life, I think, is what connects us to that common sense. You want to talk a
Yeah.
little bit more about resilience? Because I feel like there's some magic brewing.
No, I really hate it when we say safe places. It almost makes you never want to leave the place. It's like you're going to hibernate there forever, and the world is a lot better than we make it sound. Really, it's just that everything we read and the media and everything, it's not going to tell you anything good. It's got to sell copy. It's got to be quite scary. I think we hit all our youngsters with everything that's from climate change to everything as if it's a disaster out there. It really isn't, and I think that before we destroy the world, even us thinking we can do it, I think we're becoming too. We almost. How am I going to say this? But we almost like we think too much of ourselves. We it's almost like we too we like arrogant. Like if we think everything we do is what's going to happen. No, you know what? We've got to do the best we can for the world. We've got to do this. We've got responsibilities. Yes, we can become a lot better, but even like how we're going to become better is up to us already. Like we can already live with less fridges, less watches, less, when we think we're going to save the world because we're going to have electric cars, that's not going to save the world because that's not the mindset. The mindset's got to save the world. People think I'll buy a lot of new cars. The last new car I bought for me is in 2012. I've got a smart Brabus. So it's a smart and it's a Brabus and it's a car I drive the most. Okay. And it's not electric, but I can promise you it's more sustainable than anything that's ever been electric because I've got it for 12 years. An electric car, need to dig it up, send it over there, do this. But we never think, and we always sometimes even do things just thinking, oh, it's good, but it's not really good. And I think we do need to start becoming more resilient in how we live and not blame ourselves for everything. Because if we keep blaming ourselves for everything, we it's too easy for us to be like influenced and not not live a good future and start hating each other, because then it becomes extreme. You've got like these extreme sides, like and if you think about it, there's so many people in the middle, but we don't hear them because we're too scared. Because if we say one thing, ooh, we're going to be labeled. Yeah, if we say another, ooh, we labeled. Yeah, but there's a big middle. That just it's silent. So I do think everything you said and persistence and being resilient is very, very important. And the only way to become resilient is really again being responsible for yourself. And knowing that if you don't move forward, I always tell people there's nothing we can do about the past. Like, you can change the future, but if you keep looking at the past and the mistakes you've done, you're going to hit your head going forward. There's nothing I can do. When I crashed that car. One thing I knew is I never wanted to see my dad's face like that again. So I said, okay, future wise, I'm not going to do stupid things like that. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what's important. We've got to tell people, talk about the future. Stop blaming. If you look at all the past and everything, the time we spend, and I promise you go on TV now, everything that's going, all conflicts, it's about the past. Everything's about the past. I grew up with Nelson Mandela then when he came into power. And one thing he could have done was look at the past and blamed everything. And actually really just started a civil war because of the past. And it was a man that decided to actually look forward, forgive the past, never spoke any more about the past. It was all about what future could this rainbow nation do, And you know what's happened? 30 odd years later, we now got leaders that are talking about the past, and we're destroying a country again. And I think that's all that can be done. Everywhere we look, we're talking about the past and finding whose fault is this, whose fault is that. And the truth is there are no innocents, so we might as well get over that and just start looking where do we go forwards? What can we do? And little things that make big differences. That's another thing. There's so many little things we can do in our own lives that make a big difference, and in our own countries, etc., that just make a huge difference. But it's scary to say that. I probably even said too much already, but yeah.
Well, maybe you did, but you were being real with us. You came full circle to the face you had on your dad's face after the reaction you caused by crashing the car at that young age. One of those rules not to break. We talked a lot about rules that are worth breaking, rules to play with, not just to follow along, to be brave, to be authentic, to step up, to build a future that's worth living. Tim, this has been a fantastic hour and 15 minutes with you. Is there anything else you'd want to throw into the mix, Hope or Tim, before we wrap this episode for today?
I just want to thank you, Tim. You are a beacon of bravery, honesty, guts, and also common sense. It's really amazing to hear where you're taking your life in the little steps and the grand sweeping moves. I just wanted to end on, is there something, there's going to be a bunch of young people listening into this, and is there something that you share with young people right now to encourage them more than anything else? What is the sentence that you share more than anything else with young people?
No, I really just say you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make a lot of errors, and that's just life. It's called life. It's life, And you know what? Say sorry and move on. And don't let them hold you back. There's that Marigold movie, the hotel in Marigold in India, and he says, in the end, everything will be okay. If it's not okay, it's not the end. And I think it is a little bit like that. We've just got to, in the end, it'll be okay. You'll grow up, you'll do stuff, you'll make those mistakes, meet people. Don't be scared. Don't always be worried about everyone you meet. It's life. It really is. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's unbelievable. And when you're young, look, there's no currency like time. You can't go back in time and that. But if I could, I'd give everything just to go back and be that 14-year-old that crashes the car again and lives it all over again. I promise you, it is, I've got a reminder on my hand. That was like a few operations on my hand from that car crash. And my dad, on the day he came, my dad never ever hit me. And he came to, pick up the car with the police there. And he was so upset that he also punched the car. He punched the car. And both of us went in the ambulance together to the hospital with our hands. Both of them, he broke his hand, I had my hand broken. And you know what? That look, sometimes you get that look, that changes your life. That was my look. That was the look that I got. And guys, if I hadn't made that mistake, I wouldn't have had the life I have. If I'd done everything like by what I know today, focus is everything, I wouldn't have done half the exciting things that I've done. You know what I'm saying? And it's like that. And it's, if you fall in love, I always tell youngsters, that I told my friends I'd marry my wife when I was 13. Okay, that's a scary thing. So 13, I say I'm going to get married with that woman. 14, I crashed a car. So it seemed like I was like always, but before I got married, because I only started dating when I was like 22, I did go through a lot of broken hearts, and many times in when I speak to a youngster, they say, "Yeah, but I really love them." And I say, I know you really love them. And I was like the very first one who loved me. I also said, I love you. And then all of a sudden, after a few months, she was with one of my best friends. And I was like heartbroken. And I said, that's love. The next one came. I didn't say, I love you as fast as possible. And the third one, I'd act like I didn't hear it. I didn't want to say, I love you, because it wasn't like the best thing. But when the time came and it really counted, it took all those frogs, like, the frogs. It took all those, kisses and loves you and everything to make who you are and to be ready for the person you love. So this is the process. It's like everything in life. It's like failing an exam. It's a process. It's like loving someone. It's a process. It's okay. Don't take it too serious. So I never tell them one thing. I go through a lot of things, because young people, you never know what's going to be the key. Sophia that works with us, she always says, BGA, it's like a hat store. We've got a lot of different hats, baseball caps, cowboy hats, and we try to find the hat that fits your head, and it really is that, in life, you can't just try one key, and if that key doesn't work, you keep struggling, or you say it doesn't work. No, there is something, and I think with youngsters, they're going through so many things, you've got to try a little bit, a few keys, but yeah.
Tim, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
This was amazing. Thank you for lighting up our space today. It's been wonderful.
It's been real, breaking the rules of business as usual. You gave us a lot of examples, a lot of insights. Thank you.
Thank you, guys, really. And it's great to see you guys growing with these things. Very nice.